everyone. I am SAMBAN, and now I will continue to discuss about the principles of instructional materials development. So these are the principles that will guide in terms of looking the right learning material, crafting our own material or the developer itself, and of course looking into what our material we're gonna be presented and how the process making will be integrated with it. First, we have what we call principal material development number 12. That material should take in account that learners differ in affective attitudes. In terms of instructional process, affective usually relates to learners' motivation and positive feelings towards the target language, their teacher, their peers, and the materials themselves. Dealing with the 12th principle, Tomlinson 2011 suggests diversifying the materials. In other words, the materials in the textbook should be varied by having different types of text. The materials should have different types of learning tasks and offer opportunities to the learners to share their attitude and their feelings towards the course and the materials. The cultural sensitivity will also fall into these principles. For example, in the materials would be all about theme, offer, and suggestion. Student can apply social functions, structure, text in linguistic features, involves action, give, and ask information about offer and suggestion. Now, this material improving skills, speaking skills of learners. Another one is that would be in theme, meaning through music. So student can capture or contextualize meanings related to social function and linguistic elements of song lyrics related to teenagers' life. And that's how this principles works. Moving on to the next principle, which is principle material development number 13, material should permit a silent period at the beginning of instruction. This could mean that the silent period is used to facilitate the development of the learners. Students need a silent time to have effective internalized grammar and other language elements which can help them to achieve proficiency. According to the study of Dulay, Bird, and Krashen in 1982, students are permitted to remain silent or respond in their first language may be the most effective approach for the early phases of language instructions. And this approach approximates what language learners of all ages have been observed to do naturally, and it appears to be effective than forcing full two-way communication from the very beginning of language to acquisition. The important point of this principle is that the materials should not force premature speaking in the target language, and they should not force silence either. Next is principle material development number 14. Materials should maximize learning potential by encouraging intellectual, aesthetic, and emotional involvement, which stimulates both right and left brain activities. Now, learning a language is so much more than learning lexis, syntax, and input and output skills. It is a part of a student's life. Materials at the moment seem to be attempting to foster more engaging exercises and using more interesting content, as well as providing more access for students through the use of technology, and are set to continue. But is it enough? This principle is probably the most important principle one for me, because as what Lazonov's assert that it is fundamental principle, as language is the mechanism we use for communication, and what we want to communicate has a wide spectrum of topics. By using the right and left brain, we are simply recreating what happens every time we leave the classrooms. For example, we met a friend and have a coffee while reminiscing about school, or we watch and read the news and we think it again to compare it to the issues in our current lifetime. In short, If life cannot be learned through a 12-unit book and supplementary material, then why do we expect students to learn a language through a book when communication is what constantly takes place in our everyday lives? So what developer needs to do is to maximize the learning potential of students. Now moving on to the next principle, material development, is principle number 15, which is materials should not rely too much on controlled practice. Practice activities are designed to give opportunities for the learners to practice their ability in using the target language in appropriate way. But controlled practice can mean wasting of time because the learners only follow the situation created without trying to create their own situation. Based on the 15th principle, Tomlinson 2011 suggests reducing the frequency of having controlled practice in the learning materials. The materials for the learner should be flexible. It means that the materials offer some choices to the learners to create their own situation when practicing their language. Next, we have what we call principal material development number 16, that materials should provide opportunities for outcome feedback, especially feedback on the effectiveness of use of language rather than accuracy of language. Based on the 16 principles, materials should provide a lot of opportunities for the learners in order to gain feedback. In this case, the opportunities deal with the learners' attempts in using the target language in communication. There are two main functions of feedback, such as to let the learners know that they do the right thing and to encourage their motivation in learning the language. Therefore, materials developer necessarily to consider and make sure the purpose of materials and activities used is effective for learners, language learning, and the feedback will impact positively. To sum it up, materials development is basically a crucial aspect of language teaching and learning because this is to utilize as looking into the discussion, the content that facilitate acquisition of the language skills and knowledge. So these are utilized by students for them to have independent learning. Not only with that, this is also utilized by teacher for them to be guided on how the teaching and learning process would go. Always remember that all of these principles mentioned will be a guide not just only for professional materials writers but also for teachers in terms of looking and crafting the right learning materials. And that would be all for my discussion. I hope you learned something. Thank you for listening.